the title is Opportunities for HRC Funding 2016 Round, and I was going to put into parentheses still, but we didn't because we wanted to keep this relatively formal. Now, unfortunately, this is the first time I've given this presentation because last week we finished the funding round for 2015 with the board meeting on Thursday. So many of you, those who applied, will be getting outcome letters sent to you midweek. Oh, sorry. Can I continue? Which one is it? Okay, so just a little bit of background about the Health Research Council. Right, so the first bullet point is that the HRC is about to celebrate its 25th Jubilee anniversary. And there will be celebrations held from October through for the year onwards. Established by the Crown entity as a Crown entity by the HRC Act in 1990. Uniquely, we have two ministers. We're responsible to the Minister of Health, but our funding primarily comes from MB. And those are the two ministries that are undertaking the strategic refresh of the HRC currently. Now, just as a background exercise, I thought it'd be interesting to see what is the impact of the HRC on health researchers in the country, and these data are from 2014. So in 2014, the HRC supported 773 FTEs in New Zealand, and as many researchers are part-time researchers, that translates into more than 2,500 researchers in New Zealand. And of those, 17% are emerging researchers, including research fellows and postgraduate students. And in addition, 56% of first grant recipients are engaged in HRC projects. As you realise, first grant recipients don't receive salary when they just get research expenses. We undertook a bibliometric analysis, and you may have seen the media release from last week. HRC-funded researchers had a very high international profile with an average citation of 14.5 per publication. And Kath, who's going to speak in a minute or two, will probably give you a bit more detail about that. HRC funds researchers that have collaborations overseas with 203 positions held on contracts held by those collaborators. And just for additional bit of information for you, I took a look at our database for funded contracts for the last 10 years, 2003, 2014. And I mean, these figures may not be 100% accurate, but the leader is University of Auckland, having received $307 million over the last 10 years. And if you add in the uni services part of it, then it's in excess of $350 million. And second is University of Otago, followed by Massey, the Mulligan, AUT. There's a significant amount of funding that is administered directly by the HRC. And then there's a Medical Research Institute of New Zealand and ADHB towards the bottom. And then there's an independent Maori Research Institute and number 10 spot. So I'm just going to hand over to Kath for a few minutes, and she's going to talk to you about the strategic refresh that the HRC's been undergoing.
Thanks, Vernon. Can you hear me? Perfect. First of all, hello. It's really nice to meet some of you for the first time and see some familiar faces. I'm the new Chief Exec at HRC and have been there since February, so you can understand that it's been a really interesting first few months. But we thought you might be interested to know, I guess, a little about where we are with the refresh. Does anybody not know that the refresh was going on? We certainly know it was going on. The refresh was instituted by both ministers. I think we've been reviewed, and you can see now I'm feeling part of the HRC because I'm saying we more. We've been reviewed, this is the third time in just over a decade. So the government's taken a really good look at HRC quite often. And certainly, I think as a researcher, particularly maybe 10, 15 years ago, we all thought the HRC was getting squeezed all the time, and was it going to change? Was it going to disappear? When the news of the refresh came, I was really encouraged by the fact that it was called a refresh, not a review. And then, of course, the ministers called it a review, not a refresh. My phone ran hot for quite some time. It's been a challenging time. I think the government really does want to explore whether the outcomes that we're set to try and achieve with the Act are still the outcomes they want us to achieve, which is really about enhancing, doing the very best quality health research for New Zealand and to enhance health in New Zealand. You will all know that economic gain, commercialisation are words that we hear a lot more, and part of the refresh terms of reference were to look at how well we were aligned with the government's economic strategies. So that's been an interesting time. The other thing is, I guess, that health research has become, or health research funding has become a really complex landscape. So where we are still the main government funder for research, we probably only fund around 15% of the health research that's actually done in New Zealand, because we've now got the science challenges, the Tertiary Education Commission funds through the cause, there's PBRF reinvestment into universities. So we're trying to do an awful lot with around 15% of the spend. So really, I guess our question, and it's a question the Secretariat have been battling with for a number of years, is how to do more with less, because there hasn't been a funding increase for a number of years, while costs, I'm sure your salaries don't feel like they've gone up a lot, but they have gone up. So for us to meet the demand is becoming increasingly tough. I'm not sure what the outcome of the refresh will be. We've certainly had some feedback from the refresh team, that feedback from organisations like yours, from many interested stakeholders, as being the HRC is vital to us and its processes are much better than the counterfactual, so don't harm it. I have to say I've had a few senior people say to me, you clearly need to have double your funds. Now, I don't think we're going to get double our funds. Well, we certainly didn't get it in the budget last week. But I'm hopeful, and I'm working very hard to try and increase our funds to double over the next few years. Now, that's going to be a lot of work, and the HRC can't do it on its own. One of the things that's really hit me is that I think we share the same aspiration. I'm a health researcher, you're health researchers. We all want to do work that enhances New Zealand, that enables us to attract good people to work here because there's good opportunities for them, where clinicians want to do both their clinical work and research, and that they can do it here. So we need organisations like you and people like you to remember where HRC was in your story of your research. We've done a number of surveys, including the bibliometric survey, which showing really that the HRC funded research is of higher quality than any other health research funded in New Zealand by quite a distinct margin, particularly in immunology, clinical research, obs and gynae and neonatal work, and a number of others. In 10 out of 12 areas, HRC funded work is more impactful in terms of quality. This means we're a good horse to bet on, I think. But one of the things that's happened, we've done another survey which has been looking at media announcements about health research. There are a lot of them. A number of them come from your organisation and others. It's slightly, as a researcher, I always knew I should acknowledge the funder when I was talking to media about my research, but that's what it was in my head. I was acknowledging the funder. When we don't acknowledge the funder is invisible to anybody that reads about that research. Government has no idea that we've been involved in about 50% of the research where there has been media releases over the last couple of months, because HRC wasn't mentioned. So it's a kind of incremental and additive problem. If the government doesn't know that the research we're funding is having an impact, which is way after we've funded it, then the government doesn't know that we're producing and helping you produce the very best of research. So if we share the same aspirations, I hope that you will take this positive exhortation and plea to help the media understand that this is an important story, actually. Without HRC, there are numerous important pieces of work that would not have happened in New Zealand. I was at the opening of the Brain Research Centre with Richard Fall and team on Friday. Richard told me 2 weeks before that the Centre for Brain Research would not have happened without the 25 years of investment from HRC. So we're producing some fantastic outcomes for New Zealand and some fantastic impacts. So we would really like you to help us in that. What does the future look like? Well, I see the joint ministers this afternoon, so I'll send out a Twitter, no I won't. I see them this afternoon, and I'm hoping that I will get some better idea of their vision for health research. I think Minister Coleman is new in his role. He didn't, I'm not sure how much he values health research, so today I will be telling him why he should. That there are many things that look different about New Zealand today because of the research that is being funded. And I will try and augment that case so that next year we can offer, well, maybe not next year, not for the 2016 round, but for 2017 there'll be more money. That'd be a good outcome, wouldn't it? So we'll keep working very hard. There are no signs that the HRC is going to disappear. All the signs are that there is a renewed interest and awareness about what the HRC is achieving, how important it is for new and emerging scientists, how important it is for those large programs of work that build capacity. So we will keep doing our best to try and make sure that it maintains being a really good stream of investment for your work. Thanks, Vin.
Thanks, Kat. I really love these pep talks. Okay, so for the HRC, the funding round is run primarily by the names, the 6, 7 names up on the board here. It's a relatively small group. The HRC, I just took a look at our telephone directory this morning. We've got 32 staff at the HRC in our office just down the road from here. And of those 32 staff, 11 of them are part-time. So of the members of the team up here who are responsible primarily for running the funding round, this is receiving your applications and then managing assessment, of those, 2 of them are part-time as well. So we run quite an efficient organisation. But I've got those names up there so that you recognise them, and if you need to contact any of us, then please feel free to send us emails. The other people are further down the list, Tanya Pocock, Nuhi and Vivian, are responsible for other aspects of the running of the funding round, and Vivian's here today, and if you just stand up and wave your arm, Vivian. Her group runs the application portal and also the reporting portal as well, so we'll talk a little bit about that further down here. Just to remind you that the HRC still has the research investment stream framework for investment streams. The intent has been that the Rangahau Hauora Maori investment stream would receive about 10% of the HRC funds, the Research for New Zealand Health Delivery about 20%, and the other 2 investment streams, Health and Wellbeing in New Zealand and Improving Outcomes in Acute and Chronic Conditions, would share the remaining 70%. In the funding round that's just been completed, that distribution hasn't looked anything like the numbers that I've just talked about, and that Rangahau, I think, spent about 20% of their allocation. New Zealand Health Delivery about, again, 20% of the allocation. So the rest of that investment's basically gone into the 2 other investment streams. One of the things that we should emphasise always is that in applying, you need to direct your application to one of those investment streams, and the portal makes it a lot easier for you nowadays. You can't make a mistake because you would pick Project Health Delivery or Project Health and Wellbeing and whatever. So, and the other piece of advice that we give is that if you're unsure about where your application or research would fit, then you would probably at least start an application in a couple of investment streams and eventually withdraw one of them when you've made up your mind. Okay, so Kat's already talked about the National Science Challenges. The investment signals and guidelines were updated last year to include the National Science Challenges, and I just quote here that HRC encourages research that can contribute to in NSC, as well as research on other health priorities, provided it is in scope for one of our investment signals. So there's no exclusion here, and we are quite happy to invest in anything that NSC might be investing in as well. So we see that HRC funding will complement the challenges. Research will not be excluded because it's not in NSC scope. Research will not be prioritised because it is in NSC scope. And applications are assessed using existing HRC criteria. And I'm sure that if you've read our peer review manual, you'll be reasonably familiar with that. In addition to the way that the HRC invests in our investment stream framework, the additional guidance that we give recipients of HRC funds is that successful applicants in scope for an NSC will be encouraged to engage with NSC leads. And as a downstream look at how our funding goes, we'll monitor how our investment fits in with NSC investment. So just as a final word on investment streams, do make sure that you pick an investment stream that your research best fits with respect to the goals that are in the investment signals. We did intend to bring down copies of those documents this morning, but in the rain and in the rush to get here, we didn't bring them. However, they are obviously all downloadable from the HRC's website, so you can do that at any time.